Hey guys, hopefully you guys can hear me well. I am here with Mizenhauer, who has been our lead judge for several of our previous TeamLiquid Map contests for team maps, and also for the smaller events when we need to be doing map selections. Hopefully this stream will be like very educative. There you guys are telling me that I'm rather low. Okay, will be educational to anybody who wants to like dive a little bit into team maps. It's a hidden subject, unquote, for several of the map makers who prefer to specialize into one versus one, but generally, obviously, super important if you aim to do like anybody and anything else like beyond that aspect. Without further ado, hey guys, we'll be going over several of the maps that are in that Mysen wants to mention in particular, and also taking questions. We will be doing both at the same time. Hey Mysen, can you present yourself? Hopefully, people can hear you well.
Relative to yours.
See. Mysen, you there?
Yep. Yeah. You can hear me?
Yeah, yes. Okay, please, guys, be sure to tell us. Yeah, he was a little bit quiet. I know, dude. It's like actually super cold in here. We're in the middle of winter, like the middle. Oh no, now he's too loud, Myson. But yeah,
You can just adjust the volume in Discord, I think, for me. But
yeah, likely. But the thing is that there are several layers, right? So hopefully nobody died from that. I don't want to like fiddle too much with volumes because, as I mentioned, once a volume has been set, then it's like locked in, basically.
yeah. We'll work it out.
Yeah, not just that, killer, because like I'm actually like bald, right? I shave my head, so I need I need my beanies, dude. I need to collect my beanies, otherwise I'm screwed. Okay, Mysen, with
Yep.
what initial comments would you like to make to the guys?
Um so I think did they receive any form of that document that we got that's very comprehensive?
That's very comprehensive.
Anyway, I'll just so yeah, so there's a couple points the Cantu message in mentioned as like things to do, things not to do during I believe whatever the post is that announces the thing. So we're gonna like kind of address these various themes, point out maps where it works, point or it doesn't work and why. So that's basically just go over stuff and any questions you guys have about why something might be this way, even though it looks similar, etc., etc. Um, Looking forward to answering them.
Yeah. We already received like several questions, but I think that we can start, or maybe we can answer a couple of them because like some of the short ones, they are in the doc. You can scroll down and select a couple.
Yep.
Select the first two, for example.
Go over these.
Yep.
Um, I guess it's easier to explain that as I'm explaining the uh
Oh,
the map
with a
actually.
map itself.
It's
Which
just
one?
easier to have a visual thing also. I
Yeah,
actually do
exactly.
want to take a look at further at one question here. Yeah, because I think it just is. So yeah, what do we have? This map, yeah.
Oh yeah, here we have the Arctic Gates. It's a two versus
Yeah, it's
two
a
map.
peculiar one for sure. I actually lost a 2v2 with Sue on this map because neither of us got detection and we lost to DTs.
Mysen was just telling me that he likes to play. He has been liking to play without sound, without audio. So that's particularly funny. Yeah, it's like, what is the name? Desert Oasis, but worse because it's for team games and because the airspace is like even closer. Let me see.
Sorry, I'm just peeking at a 3v3 and 4v4 map real fast.
Yeah, no, I mean that's what the question is about mostly. It took me for a loop that Killer Smile decided to ask us for 3 versus 3 and 4 versus 4, because obviously like the main focus generally in the same manner in 1 versus 1 tends to be with the standard, or in this case in team games tends to be in 2 versus 2. While 3 versus 3 and 4 versus 4 tend to be like far more chaotic when it comes to gameplay.
Yeah, there's just so much stuff going on. It's the kind of thing where you'll have like one expansion is open to air and it's getting void rays, like fast void rays are killing stuff, while someone else is swarm hosting in your main base. It's just some of those maps you can only affect the gameplay so much with threes and fours.
Yeah, by the way, mentioning the Selnaga pyramids, not only the base, but like the ones at the very top. I'm talking of the stream particularly. Some do that, Mysen. It's strictly forbidden for to do this in like 1 versus 1 maps. I forbid it. I explicitly no. I explicitly no. Yeah. Mostly because to set up an off-fly zone on top of a singular aesthetic, do that. Um, no, guys, just no. To disrupt the gameplay in such a way to avoid air units from like actually pathfinding through the correct place. No.
Let me know whenever you want to start with this. I was just looking
No,
at
no,
some.
go for it. Go for it.
No,
I'm
you can.
here.
Well, I guess we'll go from the top. I guess is what I'm saying.
Which map is there any map that you want me to open in particular in three
It's
versus
the
three?
trio: Shrines of Azul, Shadow Jungle, and Sledge City for the first point.
Ah, okay.
So we can do them, and just as long as we do Sludge last.
Okay, Shrines of Liso. Here we go. Okay, I have it open in stream.
Um. So there are some like specific problems to this map, but more importantly, it's like an archetype of a map that is very difficult to pull off. And that's basically just having these two players, even if they spawn a back nat, you put some bases in the back, so it might feel a little bit safer. The thing is that these maps with players starting separate just turn into 2v1s. Um, I mean, if so, the main thing you're worried about in team maps as compositions is your map needs to. How would I put this? Your map needs to play Ling Floods, lots of Lings with either Hellions, Phoenixes, Stalkers. Those are the kind of armies you're dealing with in the early game, early to mid game. And on maps like these, if you're a Protoss player, for example, and your teammate is getting attacked by Lings and Hellions, you can't really walk across that space. You can't walk. You can't go out. There's really. You would think you'd be able to help someone, but you can't. Um, and so there's a number of maps that are like this in general, and we're talking about the kind of expansion pattern also where players are spawning away from each other, which we'll get into more detail later. But I would say if you're trying to make a map, going with this kind of base setup is just making it hard on yourself. Um, you want to keep the players able to help each other out without just suiciding if they try to walk across the space. And yeah, in general, I mean, there's a lot of distance to cover from, main to main here. Efflorescence we'll get into as one of the better examples of this also. Um, but so this map, by the way, also just, it's too small for team games. The rush distance too short. I know there is a rush category, but I would say it's better to be conservative within the rush category for the difference, if you know what I mean, because it's obviously a range. So, like this map, a lot of you don't remember this build probably, but it was in 2017. EJ remembers it. You get 3 Ravagers and a Roach. If you do that, if both Zerg players do that to one of the opponents, they're just dead. No one can defend 8 Ravagers at that timing. So gonna want to have the bases bigger in general. Not bases, the distance. But we'll also get into a map that has a short distance, and in fact is one of the examples in the post on TeamLiquid. So that'll be a whole nother thing when we get to it. Yes, Reaper. Yeah, that's what I was saying. This map has its own individual problems, not even as an archetype of spawning separately. Yeah, this map was just a lot of Reaper shenanigans, and because it's so close, that's kind of just what you're getting the whole game. So I would say Reaper access is something that's fine, because I think Reapers obviously have to be able to get around, get in and out of bases and whatever, but massing, you have to remember it's not just Reapers that are attacking, it's Reapers and Lings or whatever it is. And you can really stretch players too much. If you're on this base, your ramps being attacked by Zerg, Reapers are jumping in right towards your mineral line. It's stresses you a lot to defend that. So I would, but if you do a good job with the Reaper stuff, then that's great.
Then you get
I
to
actually am not
survive until
familiar with
the
that map, Killer Smile.
yeah. Then you get to survive until the stalling of the of the center, and where both players just start like clumping with air units and whatever. Yeah, it's
Yeah, we can actually see the. So it's funny because I mean the outside base structure is whatever here. The maps, the bases in the back aren't actually like super safe. You know, they're hard to get to. Also, Efflorescence has the same design. Creates an issue for Zergs because you want to get creep on the map, but your first expansion is way safer on the back. So we'll talk about that at other points, but creep's important, and how players expand as a team is greatly influenced by having a Zerg on the team. But we can pull up Shadow Jungle, where the middle of the map will actually be, I think it's pretty similar-ish. This map is purple when you open it in game, which is very purple. So yeah, it's the same thing where we're like trying to make it a little safer by making it so you have to go around to get to the ramps. Nice Reapers again, wonderful. But you can see it's the same thing. It's like just the distance between players. How these bases in the back aren't really that safe. If you're a Zerg player, your creep's getting not happening on this map. But again, it's one of these things where, sorry, you can go ahead. Sorry.
no, just laughing.
Yeah, no, it's a situation where again we're spawning separately, putting bases in the back to make it seem safer that aren't really safe. I actually like Black Site. It's very reliable. You get the same game every time on it. Um, but but yeah, so we'll get to, I guess, Sludge City and Efflorescence at different points during this whole discussion. But is there any questions further as to why these maps, like what features or anything that make it particularly bad? Just any questions. Like I said, these maps can work, but you're making it tougher on yourself if you do that.
Make it a meta for 2 versus 2. I think that maybe, yeah. The 2 versus 2 generally allows from an extra layer of stability because of the heightened defender's advantage that tends to happen in 2 versus 2 versus 1, where the timings tend to be like extremely sharp, especially at the highest level. 2 versus 2 is you still have an extra layer of flexibility. It's not very wide, that layer, but it's still there. And a map like Eremita could have an space. Obviously, you need to execute it very, very well. Otherwise, it will be very difficult to manage to do that. Yeah. Also, guys, please mention in the chat what do you consider the levels of volume of me versus Mizen. I'm still keeping an eye on that. So far as
Sorry about that.
questions, so far
Yep.
as
So yeah.
questions with this, Mizen, I don't think that there are many.
I mean, there is. Sorry, I was
Generally,
gonna say in the chat mentioning rough natural and the stalemate. Yeah, I mean that's once you get these kind of like bases that are to the north of the main base or to the south, depending on which where you spawn. Those spots you just park siege tanks and stuff, and it just gets like no one can attack into anyone. Too many chokes, too many high grounds, and now we're just just kind of. So this map is the kind of thing where yeah, if you don't get killed early, it's just gonna because that happens a lot in teams. If you can't kill the person immediately, you just tech really hard. So we're just looking at the bottom two bases. The bases to the north of those mains are things that are really just, yeah, kind of want to avoid this design because it's going to lead to players just camping it out and holding, the entire map behind basically one big choke.
yeah, precisely. I very much agree in that regard. Yep.
But yeah, we can pull up if there are no other questions. Sludge City is a good one to talk about. Canyon of Tribulation. I do not know this map.
We don't have it here, but I can open it. Is that how you type it?
Yeah, but to address the chat, yeah, I mean, it's just Reaper stuff. I mean, these bases these are Blizzard maps, so the bases are, as you are, make no sense.
Yeah, this is the 3 versus 3 one. Oh my god, you would see. You will see. You
This
will
was
see
from
what
the map
this is.
contest, I recall.
No, it's a police map, I think. If I remembered it. I will send you the overview, the quickly overview.
Yep.
Sorry, guys, but no, yeah, most of the Bliss maps when it comes to base placement, guys.
No, yeah, this map is just park some siege tanks here and everybody techs there.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can actually notice the base in the top left of the stream. Yeah. So in teams, you want to keep in mind how would I put this? There's a lot more air units. So having like one base of your team, you can see I guess I have no idea where anything. Like 9 o'clock, that cluster of three bases point
Yep. Yep.
so yeah, that's like you can see the one is much more exposed towards the other team. I guess two of them are. The one guy's in the back, he's fine. But yeah, those keep in mind about bases that are open to air because you do get a lot more air strategies in teams than you would in 1v1.
Yeah, very much true. And yeah, as you were mentioning, like just like find the position to park the tanks in, and then just mass to air, because even then there is like no space to move armies here, or
Yeah, I mean
large 2 versus 2.
it's like interesting how there are 1v1 maps that can work with kind of like solid borders and stuff that are not like solid, but like Golden Wall and stuff like that that kind of separate things, but you can't really separate players that way. It just starts in these kind of maps.
It
It's you just get too much teching and no one can do anything.
Yeah, it
Or someone
devolves.
or the one guy who spawns in the one person who spawns in the worst spot just gets 4v1 or whatever it is.
Yeah, absolutely true.
Yeah, with the as you mentioned, with the 3 and 4 maps, it's gonna have to be, standard in the sense that it's can't be too extreme. Um, because it's 3s and 4s, as Cantu said, is chaotic as is.
But having the
Um,
third
uh,
bases like this, he means these ones.
I mean, well, I don't know what they're doing besides just giving extra play. How many are total in here? 3, 9.
There are three
Yeah, I
bases
mean,
per player. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I
I
mean, I
mean,
I just I just think the map doesn't work, but but I guess you can't really get to these bottom things unless you're going by air. So that's why I'm like you can't split players like this.
yeah. Generally, in this situation, you will be better if you were to move the main bases to here and make this like middle ground and this one the high ground. Um, and with that, you already have like extra distance between the players, and you already have like several other advantages. When it comes to movement flow, you have extra more space that you can use in this section, for example, or this section, and you can arrange players and their army movements better. Rather than, for example, you can then connect these areas. Obviously, it takes away the thematic that the designer tried to go for the map. But obviously, if that thematic by itself is clashing too hard against the actual gameplay that the map provides, then you are not losing that much. After all, gameplay always comes first.
For like questions about specific maps, we can cover that at the end because I do want to get back on the um on the 2v2 thing. Unless you have more to say on this one.
No, nothing particular.
Okay, so we
It's a
sludge.
it's a good example of like the unquote the failures generally that arise from map makers wanting to have wanting to create an idea in a map, and then I would like to say not listening to the gameplay that the map provides, because obviously like we're making a game and the core idea of the game is just to provide solid gameplay, and if that's not happening, then you need to concede the whole idea and like reconstruct it. um but yeah, no, for when it comes to this one in particular, no, I don't have like anything else to say other than that illustration.
Yeah, I think a lot of the map makers would be surprised how just there can be maps with just like one feature and like that breaks the map. And
Yeah.
this is like a good example where just if you see the middle choke, it just no, that's not happening.
Yeah, especially with like with three armies, dude, with three armies walking around. I mean, this map is precisely designed for armies to not walk around.
Yeah,
But
you
yeah,
just moving around by air is so much better on this map,
yeah,
obviously. Keep in mind, as map makers, the 3s and 4s, the bigger you get, you might have to have enough space on the ground for 8 armies potentially. So once you go to those bigger team formats, there's like a balance between chokes that is a little different than would be in 2v2 or 3v3 because you're just adding players.
yeah, exactly. Okay, to the next that you wanted to mention.
So no, on this we're good. I think we can get back to the topic we were talking about, spawning people separately.
Okay, and the right map, Sludge City, our beloved.
So just to mention to people, like efflorescent applies to this also, but I wanted to use for at least the 2v2 examples, to never, how would I put it? I mean, to not reuse the maps over and over. So it'll be like Sludge City is also about expanding away from opponents, and but we'll try to get to it topic by topic and highlight specific things. My as to how this map plays, and then Kent, you can get into really technical stuff. It works despite the two players spawning separately. I don't think this is a map that you can realistically. I mean, people try in like platinum and diamond, but you can't wall this the whole thing. You just die to any amount of links or reapers. But yeah, so yeah, you don't do the natural wall, but basically having access to these gold bases, and one in the back, it's so yes, the issue we're talking about is players spawning separately. Um, and as you can see, we have that. But this shared natural, which is something that will come up a lot later, is a way of making it so you can have the players spawn separately in a certain way, but still make, the fight isn't going on in these players' mains. Because if we have the guy spawning top base in the bottom right, that gold base right there is instantly, a point of contention. So that's your fighting doesn't really happen all that much in the main base.
Yeah.
So you don't have to worry as much about it. I think gold bases are really used well on this map because it does give you safety early on. I'm specifically talking about the ones like the main base spawns. Um, but gold bases run out faster, so it kind of forces you to expand. Um, a weird thing about this map that just in general is there's the two players have different times expanding. Um, well, I mean, the third bases work fine if you don't count that gold in the middle. There's 5 bases in the big thing in each corner, and
Yeah.
one each. I mean, they're pretty easy to hold if you have enough lings and stuff. Um, but so why this works as players spawning separately is because of a shared natural. Um, those are, yeah, it's 2 stories, so it's really like you don't have a ton of access by ground units um into these places. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's and I think in general in 2v2, like you should be able to get three bases on each player, because that's when macro games actually reasonably start.
They
Um
develops.
but it's not a good thing, but you don't need 6, 7, 8. Can't, you can talk about that stuff. Um but And as Killer Smile said, yeah, it's like you have these little corners you can get um, that are pretty defendable, and if you hold the Xel'Naga Tower, they're fine. You do have the issue of how welcome are the in-base naturals. In-base naturals are very tricky on this map. I think they're used well. On a more turtley map, I think they're really bad, like heavy artillery, but we'll get to that. Um, So my last note would kind of be, yes, we spawn, but everybody gets 3 pretty reasonably, and then you're fighting for the middle of the map, which seems fine. People actually do use the sides for moving around and stuff, a lot. And games that kind of, once you start to stabilize and get towards late game, those bases get taken too, all the way in the corners. Not a huge fan of this gold base being where it is in the middle like that. Um, there are flaws with the map, but it
I
works with the design of spawning separately and expanding away.
I wouldn't say that it is a flaw on quotes because it works. Don't like it either, but it
Yes,
works very well.
it works to
Mm,
keep spread the players out, do fighting, harassment, all
yeah,
kinds of stuff. But yeah, it's another, just be careful with air units relative to bases.
Yeah. Generally, like Sludge City, as I mentioned initially, like it very much is like our beloved because it just like emerged from the Blizzard map pool and became like the staple for like StarCraft 2, like 2 versus 2 gameplay.
And it has
Um,
this map originally was what 2014. I know it's definitely in 15. Um, and it played very differently in Heart of the Swarm, obviously, but somehow it translated over pretty well to Legacy of the Void.
yeah, shockingly well. But yeah, this when it comes, David Kim, Killer Smile is also joking that because David Kim made a comment in that he made all the maps in StarCraft 2, but he was referring to the initial like Wings of Liberty maps for the 1 versus 1 ladder, but like the editor or something like that, I don't remember the specific like cut that part or like left it aside. um so so he's claiming ownership of all the maps, uh, but so far as this one, yeah, no, David Kim, like he like hit it out of the park. By the way, we don't know if this one was done by him or not. It's just a joke. What
Yeah,
else?
Mira has a good summary of basically. Yeah, I mean that's the main difference in Heart of the Swarm versus Legacy of the Void is that goal-based mines out faster. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean this is also good use of the Zelnaga. That base in that's I guess it would be most 12 o'clock, most 6 o'clock ish in the bottom. It's like the little
Yes.
corner base that's south of the Zelnaga. Yeah, that one. Um, yeah, you can defend that with like you can put tanks on the high ground or some kind of thing. It's exposed. You also like people fight from it though from all sides. Like people come from the Zelnaga tower and collapse into that area. They'll come in the alley. Um, to a little bit more to the left, and then even more those high grounds. You'll get armies and units going around and contending those third bases.
Yeah,
Um,
personally, I have always loved like these high grounds. They are like so reminiscent of Match Point to like an insane degree, and they work so well. Generally, when you are trying to apply this type of designs in 1 versus 1, they don't end up working as well as here. They seriously like just don't end up working as well as here. Forward army positions, absolutely, yeah. Especially with the Selnaga
yes,
Tower, that ends up even rewarding it even more. Um, and today,
yeah, I
we
will
in
say,
Legacy of the Void, with the heightened defender's advantage from stronger uh, positional units like the long range lurkers or the disruptors for Protoss or the air armies for Protoss that are also like very they manage to DPS down the enemies from a long range.
in regard,
And
go ahead.
yeah, so far as
I was
exactly so far as Miro was going to mention, both expansion directions are also like very viable.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
most of the time, the person, if we're looking in the bottom right corner, the person spawns. So I've recently like taking my third as the normal minerals instead of the good minerals a little bit further out in the middle, just because I think as like Zerg it's easier to connect creep and stuff, and you don't have to deal with units attacking from the back. But you can take that gold. Most people do. You can also take the natural that's just north. Um, you can even have someone take that and have the other teammate who's spawning more towards the bottom just take the third we were talking about off in that little
yeah,
nook. And so yeah, I mean you can try to spawn. You can. It depends. As a Zerg, I like just having a bunch of space to spread creep, but you can expand pretty much as a team if you do, or however you want to handle it. But I think this also is one of the maps where it works well that you spawns separate. I mean expand away from each other, as Killer Smile was pointing out. I think this is one that works. But you have to be really careful how terrain works with that, and that's something we'll go over later about the expanding the same direction. I think Sludge City does it well. One of the not so many ones that does.
Yeah, and for that we have a long list. Okay, would you like to jump to the next one, to the next group?
Yeah,
I think
but
that we
we're gonna
mentioned.
cover natural expansions
Uh-huh.
next. If there's any more questions on this, we can answer those, or we can just get into Emerald
I
City.
think that we should heighten the situation with the split, with the still like the split main bases. Guys try to avoid it. Like that's what I would recommend personally. Try to avoid split main bases unless you copy paste this this layout from Sludge City, and even then it will be difficult. Killer, yeah, no, Killer. The stream will be uploaded to YouTube after everything.
So yeah, let's pull up Emerald City and talk. So this note in the announcement we're just talking about natural expansions. So we're gonna look at two maps that work and two maps that kind of don't to get a sense for, because we described this as a natural where there's two openings. And this is one of the ones that works very well that has two openings. Emerald City. Um, so yes, there are two openings, but you're defending as a team. You're defending into this same like contained natural area, which a lot of really good bases use. That and making it also a high ground, so kind of going down, down as you go. Not first base, second base, low ground, third. Um, it takes enough time to go around to get into like the more abnormal entrances. I think we can like the ramp just going down to the low ground third is your main like in and out.
Yeah.
The map does a good job of sending you on a little bit of a circuitous trip to get over to that side area. um yeah, we can we'll get to those, but so Cantu can talk about more about the exact base layout, how it works. But as a player, you feel like you can safely take those bases, you can get your thirds. Gotta watch out for cannon rushes with mineral setups like this. But this is a good natural setup, very reasonable. You get your natural, and you can take your third base and start attacking from there, or you can attack into it. There's multiple entrances. It just depends how defensive you want to be, versus how aggressive. But yeah, just a good natural setup here with the two separate entrances.
Yeah. When it comes, for example, to the actual layout, seeing maps with overly linear designs for expansion patterns end up working very stably in 2 versus 2 versus divergent expansion patterns. That is end up mostly for the same reason as the split bases, because then the players can assist each other far more easily and with less latency from when a player detects an attack until both players can like protect against it. Obviously, this will vary depending on the actual like position of the bases, but like here we have a very solid example of that. So far, the main issue when it comes to this type of maps is that obviously the variance in the long term of the gameplay of, I mean, when in the lifespan of the map ends up being limited by these overly linear expansion patterns. The map ends up being figured out, and then it just becomes like the same gameplay, the same exactly. The map becomes solved quite quickly comparatively versus divergent expansion patterns, but obviously benefits and drawbacks, right? So far as this one, for example, The
We get the
very
creep
open
example
center.
with this map also.
The creep example. Oh yeah, go about it.
So as a Zerg player, but yeah, in general. So we can start with, I guess, what we got in the top left, our 9 o'clock spawns. So creep. So a lot of people in teams will have the belief that, like, because those two bases are closer, the ones that are, like, oh, I spawn in the top left, so the one directly south is mine. Um, there is actually, a better expansion pattern that just works better, and this shows what you don't want to do, which is have your Zerg's creep not matter at all. So on this map, when you actually play it, if you spawn right side in the top main base, you would take the base directly south of you because it's easier to get that creep just right down into that spot. And you'll do the same thing. You'll go straight down to the bottom third, the low ground third there, and this just lets you get the most creep onto the map while spawning in a place where So you just spawn. It continues the whole way down. Each base, Zerg wants the front bases for creep. And part of the issue with this is now your Protoss and Terran players that are usually the like Zerg armies or Zerg armies. At any skill level, people can build a bunch of carriers. Yeah, if you don't have a Zerg, so that's the thing, the walling at the ramp, but we'll get to that right after. Yeah, so the consequence of this is the Protoss players and the Terran players building BCs and carriers are insulated from the Zerg, which is something to kind of keep in mind on how easy it is to access, like on this map, just the bases that are along the border. And to answer, can we zoom in on one of the main bases, like the ramp main to natural?
Yep.
So
On it.
this is
Mm-hmm.
so. I personally think there's no point in insulated. There's just you have to go through the Zerg to get to the base behind it, if you know what I mean. So both players can defend the Zerg bases, and what I meant by saying, like, a Protoss or Terran is going to build the easier massive army that if they get to enough carriers, it's just game over. You can't do anything. And the way this expansion goes just straight up and down, you can have your Protoss, Terran, whatever it is, they're all straight along the border of the map, and it's very hard to gain access to that without first gaining access to the Zerg. It's just like if you look realistically, you would have to go all the way around the bottom to like even get a chance to start dealing with the bases that are in the back here.
No, yeah, he means because of the vision. That's what he's talking about.
Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, I personally the high ground like vision thing and there's one on it's like in the middle-ish blocks vision. I really don't care too much about that
Yes.
stuff. Yeah, you have to. It's a pain, but like you get it up there. One tumor there will spread up, and then you're fine. But this is exactly why you have to have the Protoss player. You can see this keeps getting creepier and creepier, and your Protoss player or your Terran, they just don't want to build on this. And meanwhile, you're getting the benefit of having the creep. Um, so about the ramp walling, for the natural, um, this map is fine. This map is fine for the ramp, but there are ones where you will have issues about spreading creep in like the best possible way. But you can build on the ramp here and wall the ramp into the main if you want to. It's a good example of map where you kinda can wall your natural, but you just have to be overly defensive to do that in general. Yes, yeah, pretty much killer. Yes, so you ideally want that, but like this is a great map, and still like it just can't solve the issue of Blizzard randomly assigning the players to one of the spawns. Um, yeah, so it's on this map like it comes up. my opinion, Miro, is personally like if your opponent is in your main and it's not walled and like they're in your main with well rather if they're in your main with Zerglings and enough that it matters, it wouldn't matter if you had the wall or not. Is my general opinion on a lot of these um, walling situations. Is it's you can just defend your natural, but people will do what they do. They'll wall it, and as I said, you can't. This map suffers RNG where just it's the map is slightly worse if you spawn the other way, and the Zerg has to go across, and now their creeps spreading in a worse way because they have to go instead of just going straight south, they're going south east. So yeah, I don't know how you avoid this. Cantu can explain that as from a map thing, but it's something to keep in mind about that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't avoid it. Sadly, yeah, no, you can't set specific players to spawn in specific positions.
But you can be, but yeah, you should assume that if you're building ramps like that, the way your base is set up, that there will be situations where creep will want to go there
Oh
also.
yeah, 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 yeah. You can and it will be always a good idea to like make sure that creep doesn't block ramps and that kind of thing. Yeah. Um,
We can go to Rosk again. We can do it quickly because we're just looking at another example of naturals. I don't even know how to pronounce this map name. I don't know if anybody does.
yeah, Roscalian. Yeah.
There you go. Look. So yeah, another good example of this. This
Okay.
has one entrance, but it's a pretty big entrance, and your third isn't as easy. So we're compensating here. We're taking away one of the entrances, but it's harder to get the bases. Um, but again, this is a thing where it works. Your bases are it's actually a pretty big main base, and it's worth noting that in the bottom right base has a vision blocker on the left side for like a Reaper cliff, but it's really just like this is like the this make can't take a comment on this, but as a player, it's just annoying.
It is intended that way. It is supposed to be annoying.
Yeah, you just have to sit in Overlord there. Um, yeah, Reaper. Yeah, Reapers are well. I mean, yeah, Reapers in that one base. It's a pain in the butt, and that's the base I usually take as Zerg. So if we're top left base, we're spawn the one further to. It's like further to the outside of the map. So on that map, it would be spawn point one directly north of it.
Ah,
Um,
okay.
in
So
the natural.
here.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
that you have to deal with Reaper and air stuff there for sure. Yeah, no, they move really fast. That's the issue is there's a lot of Reaper cliffs and especially the hidden one. So this base is just a pain in the butt to navigate when defending for sure. And 3 racks Reaper is definitely a build that works in 2v2. And any format really if you have enough of other aggressive things with them. So that's the biggest flaw with this natural. But the point is like you have a shared natural and you only have one ramp here, but it's a sizable ramp and the third and fourth or the thirds are a little harder to get. So, we were saying how suggested 2 entries into the natural um drops yeah, I mean all the bases are open by air kind of. It's yeah, there's specific problems with it, of course. But this base makes up for having, not having 2 entrances by having a harder to get third and a bigger ramp. Just wanted to point that out. Um, but yes, all the things people are saying in chat is true. You have bases that are exposed to a lot of stuff. Um, it's a bit of a pain, but you know.
Yeah. Would you like to give the contrast with the other maps?
Yeah, we can pull up the other two real quick. Catalyst and Polka. I'll pull it out real. What is Alexa? I actually wanted to check what Killer was talking about. Here we go. Expand. I just don't. This map, I have no idea how this even. I don't think. No, there's no way a 4v4 map should have two entrances into its first natural base. That makes no sense. You got to let people take their second bases. Sorry, that was just directly to Killer Smile. I mean the way it has there. No, I think that's not great. Catalesque. So Catalesque is a natural setup that does not work. We found out. So the back base is all again. This map is a like if Zerg spawns south, they're gonna expand down and to the left. If you're a player spawn in the more northern part, you go right. You can't control the RNG. Almost every time Zergs don't take back bases a lot, so that's just kind of like a free base for Protoss and Terran, which is not great. In the back of maps, so yeah, our basic thing is if we look outside the ramps going from the main down, and there's this kind of rock wall blocking part of the choke. Going down, yeah, that kind of this area here. Yeah, you can wall this very easily, and then the bases in the back are super hard to get to. So this is like a natural design where it's like, yeah, it's two different entrances, but it's actually what is it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 maps behind one choke, basically. Yeah, it's bad for Zerg. As a Zerg, you wanna be like spawning down into the low ground with all your creep because it gets pretty big, and I like group spreading on that map. But just to focus on the naturals, that walling makes it so it doesn't matter how you do your natural. If you have a back base, if you have two players spawning into the same shared area, it's just if there's an issue like that, it just makes the map way worse. This map almost always goes super late game, but we can't do it if you want to talk about anything.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to make the note of the subtle flex that Ferisi mentioned, that this map looks so barren. This guy literally added little flowers on top of cacti when he was making like his famous map. So yeah, of course it looks barren. I literally forgot the name, dude. What was the name, Ferisi, please, of the 4 player map? Oh yeah, and then Blizzard removed them. Well, here you go.
So as Tactical Nuke was saying,
Cactus Valley. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, there's a
Appreciate it. Sorry
lot
for
of.
forgetting.
I enjoy Cactus Valley a lot. Very good map. So yeah, you're talking like this is usually how the games kind of function. Is either like is you get torn apart pretty early because you're trying to take your third on this base, and like if you can prevent one of the players from getting a third, it kind of snowballs. But what will happen if you can't immediately crack it is like that. Then everybody just goes to macros because they just have these easy to take bases and armies that don't scale well. So yeah, I think in general most 2v2 games and 3s and 4s too, it's like it either ends very early because you're exploiting the architecture as much as possible, or once players figure the map out, it will just become late game nonsense.
Yeah. Absolutely. And yeah, to re-mention that, yeah, it does look pretty barren. But that's part of the aesthetic, I suppose. This is the community edition. Yes.
Yeah, those little those Zerg Overlord things are interesting. There's a lot of them, but yeah, I just think what a remedy for this is just like that idea of spawning like the one player spawning just straight if you're bottom right, just going left and the other playing going up and to the right. Like that's not a good expansion setup. There's a lot of variance in spawns, And yeah, some players are just better spawning like one area or another. Yeah, the middle bases are good. They're kind of like very abyssal reefish, but with rocks on their ramps. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, I can't too.
Will Sir Rocks not be a remedy to that? No, the new expedition gates. Mycen, there will be new rocks that are Zerg that take damage over time when they are off creep. This
Oh,
is
so
your
this is in
first.
like Pro League when there's a creep tumor that you have to kill to take the base.
Yes.
Yeah, I've so as for Zerg Rocks, Cantu would have to ask. It would have to respond. I have no clue what that would do to anything. Yeah.
Um, that's the thing. That's what I was mentioning previously when it comes to what is the current state of the 1 versus 1 map pool. Yeah, it's a rock that takes damage over time when it is off creep. Actually, I'm not sure either. There is so much noise in the whole like decision space of like implementing this type of rocks. It makes me reticent, but it's the future. Okay, I certainly believe that giving tools like this open up new windows for people to explore.
The issue with this specifically is that you have to be, if you wanted to include something like that, you have to be super aware of the timings in
Yes.
team games and when they're, because like you can have them on a 1v1 map, but it's got to be tailored to what players are doing at those points in the game. And the same would happen with 2v2s, 3s, and 4s. So that kind of stuff, like Zerg Rocks and timing it out correctly, would require a lot of work.
Killer, you can. You are allowed to. Yes. I will revisit this with a Wax Angel in order to make sure that it goes into the documentation for the TeamLiquid Map Contest thread opening. But yes, you will be able to. But obviously, as Mycen just mentioned, because there are so many variations in team games, Protoss versus Protoss, Terran. I'm sorry, Protoss, Terran, Zerg, Terran, Zerg, Protoss, Zerg. Like the amount of variations and timings, it's so huge, it's overwhelming. That's what I was saying, that the decision space of using them, it's overwhelming. It just is. But yeah, you guys are allowed to.
So yeah, so I would say just this map in general, which plays okay. I mean, we have to be honest. This map is perfectly playable. Um, but if we have players spawning away from one another, too many bases behind too few chokes, and just be careful with maps where you have backdoor bases, because that's obviously gonna make teams play a lot more defensively, especially like if you're a Zerg, you can't rush that main base because even if you like I'm saying like seriously attack it, they can just still take the back base and one person's on two bases while you're harassing or whatever, or you're trying to get in, and meanwhile one of the players is on two bases the whole time. So it kind of that setup with a back base is gonna discourage players from doing more like all in or very committed early stuff for sure. That's another thing about this setup. But that would be it. It just too big of a map with too many bases and players spawning in bad ways is basically this map.
Yeah.
Um,
Just make sure that as previously mentioned, generally team games tend to have an extra layer of defender's advantage. Therefore, adding even more defender's advantage, such as backdoor naturals, ends up being not optimal. Or rather, in the optimal in the sense that you can still do it and it might work and it can work, such as we have seen in Sludge City and in this very map. Here it works. it gives like the map is already like quite distant between the players, so any attack takes a fair amount of time to get there.
Yeah, it doesn't really encourage players to go out on the map.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, especially in the mid game. Regarding 2 entrances, one's blocked by a rock. The big issue with that is like a siege tank type deal. If you're gonna have a rocked off entrance or whatever to to a shared natural, that seems like you got to take a lot of that kind of stuff into account if you wanted to do something like that.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
we can pull up Poker real fast because we'll just address the spawn thing real quick and we can move on to the next part. We don't have to go into in depth on Polka too much. It's just we're looking at natural expansions and why Roskilde and Emerald City work and why these don't. There's just not enough bases really for this map to work. Kind of. Yeah, it's just like this is a good example of it doesn't matter what you do with these like naturals, which aren't good really. I mean, you have the mineral wall, like direct low ground. It's just make your bases like make your early setups like Emerald City and Roskilde and Reclamation, and don't make this your early setup. Is basically it.
Yeah, for the actual level design here, the areas in the middle ground are using too much space. Like all of this needs to be cut or made like considerably thinner, every single one of these high grounds. Then with that extra opening, this including this one,
You would be
all of
shocked
this
how
will be.
rarely people actually those rocks have so much health that it's really, really hard to kill them.
Yeah, but still, like if you in team games you need the contrast and you need to make it, you need to really use it in the sense that of very open areas versus very closed up areas. And in this situation, yeah, there is too much lack of contrast. It is way too choky by itself. Areas such as, for example, like this high ground here, they are like not necessary. You can set up an arrangement that is simpler, like keep it simple, stupid, like just like keys, implement
What
that
usually
in the real map.
happens in that bottom base is you just go up onto the high ground and a bunch of lurkers attack you. That's usually how it goes.
Yeah.
Because yeah, that's like I was just mentioned like Poke's fine for 3 bases each, and that should be kind of like just the like allow the players to get 3 bases. But like the way it expands all the way away from your opponent, and now you have to take like these side bases that are like completely away from your teammate, and you're mining through minerals to get there. Um, yeah, it's just don't make this map is just so overly complicated in ways it doesn't need to be. It just needs to be a lot simpler with the natural setup.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, this is a map where one teammate just gets life easier than the others. Because this happens a lot on team maps. If you're going to have players spawn separately, it will actually come up when we look at Overgrown Facility, which is the next map, where there are maps where one player obviously has an easier time of things than the other. And a lot of 2v2 and 3v3s come down to, like, the one player who gets, harassed and stuff all game, and then the other two are just like sitting there enjoying themselves macroing with no losses and they win the game. Happens a lot in teams, just like one person getting focused a lot. But we can jump to Overgrown Facility and talk about that
Yeah.
because we do have an even worse version of terrain later.
Yeah, just a final comment. This is a retrospective.
Yep.
When we were talking about when I was talking about like cutting out, like making those spaces smaller, I remember that I made initially like a different version and I submitted this feedback to Agaton. I remember, I think. Not sure what ended up happening there. But anyhow,
One of the funniest things with this maps is like it gets brighter randomly in the game.
it gets brighter randomly in
Yeah,
the
like
game.
mid game the map changes color. I don't know what triggers it, but it happens.
Uh, I don't remember that. Are you sure you weren't like hallucinating?
No, 100%. Every time you play on this map, if the
Okay,
game goes long enough.
I need to look at about that.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
need
If
to
it,
look
if it
into
takes
that.
long enough, it just. So that's what I'm saying. Like if you play enough 10-minute games, you'll notice it. Yeah.
Okay, what is the next map that you wanted to jump into?
Overgrown facility. So
Okay,
it's
here
funny.
we
We're actually
go.
bringing up overgrown facility at this stage because we're talking about like good use of gold bases. And Overgrown City does a pretty good job of their gold bases. I think it's just fine the way they use golds. I think it's a good example of it. But as we're pertaining to the last situation, there are a couple issues. Obviously, people, spawning apart. They don't really have a shared natural. But the gold bases are good. The issue is if we're looking bottom left spawns, the person who spawns closer to the bottom has their backdoor base, has their natural, and they have a gold third. And the gold third's in the middle of nowhere. Um, the person who spawns just above them, however, has what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bases behind a weird choke that goes all the way around and some rocks.
Yeah.
And I would just say, like, don't make maps where the guy spawns bottom. They're like, oh, this game's just gonna be crappy for me. um, so yeah, you can have some. Obviously, there's gonna be variation, but like this is a very good example of the players having too much of a different game experience based on RNG spawn.
Yeah, Nuke. The VOD will be uploaded to my YouTube channel, I believe. Yeah,
But I do
generally
think
like
that gold third
that.
is especially the low ground one in like the at like 6 o'clock. I think that's like a good gold base there as to how it relates to the rest of the map as to how it
Yeah.
plays. But yeah, you can go ahead.
No. I just wanted to like highlight that. Are you sure you don't like the contrast between spawning in a different spawn? For example, like spawning like at the bottom versus at the top in the left side of the map.
Oh, I mean the biggest issue is this is like the most rushed map in the game. I like ideally you play the like if you ever watch pros play in this map, it's the same game every time. It's just link flood with other units because it's so hard to help your teammate. Like imagine if you're just this is the biggest thing. Protoss is a terrible time helping their teammate because they gotta like walk out with like 2 gateway units against a ton of lings. So if you have a Protoss player spawning in either of these bases, they can't do anything to help the other person who's just getting 2v1 to death. So this map can stabilize, but if you play it optimally, you just rush right off this. You do a rush, and most games don't extend beyond that, honestly.
Give me a moment. I need to be away for a second. You can keep talking, Mason.
Yeah, yeah. So I agree. It's like, but it's a gold base that I feel is fine because it should be rewarded. The bigger issue is that gold base should not be one player's main third base, if you know what I mean. Like the issue is the person who spawns bottom in bottom left or top in top right. They just don't have. They have like the 3 bases, and they're gonna have to take that for a fourth. It's like if the map was balanced more, it would be better. But it's 5 bases for one, and really hard to hold fourth for the other. Um, but I do think it is like you can get that base as long as you control the space outside of it, and I think reasonably well. Um, and but yeah, the and also we talked about like advanced position. The gold base is more in the middle of the map, in an area that can get really choky, like really really choky. Um, but the middle once you're trying to deal with those rocks, like big armies cannot go through those spaces. And this is a big like Terran getting tanks up or other stuff like that kind of situation where the 2 ways to get to the low ground in the middle are so far apart. I don't think you could make it longer if you tried. because it's like the ramp at like 1 o'clock, and then the other one's like all the way down, by like 3 o'clock to get from opening to opening. If you know what I mean, Kanto.
Yeah.
So
Not much else to say when it comes to that.
nope, and we can peek it, but we can yeah, it's a common thing is like these problems overlap with the maps, and it's just like how much the general playability deals with these problems that occur pretty much no matter what. We can flip to Nightscape though real quick. I think so. Nightscape got changed to have no rocks to take the gold base. I think it works better this way. But again, it's like it's not the most creative use of a gold base is really what I would say. If you're going to include gold bases on your map, this is not the most. And you have the gold base is it's more risky because it's safe, it's protected, it's risky by air. But a lot of the time it's just a free base and you get away with it no problem. So this is just not the most creative use of a gold base. Something to keep in mind.
I need to make note of that. I need to make note of that. It might not be the most creative way, but it is a reliable way.
Yeah. I mean, not everything has to be profound, so you can pull it off. Ideally, a little better than they do on this map, but you can get away with it for sure. It's like Sludge City gets away with it.
Yeah, exactly. So many times the guys will be seeking for ways not to like be particularly creative, especially in 2 versus 2, where the variations in matchups can be like super strong and super sharp. So they are finding like stability, so that, or at least they can get like their feet in the finalist or that kind of thing. So having like something like this can work, yeah.
And Nightscape, I would say the main problem with this map, it's pretty quick. It's just like the one player's third is like way too far away. And then you'd be shocked how much of a split map this becomes once you like safely get those bases. Yeah, once you start establishing that stuff, you just usually split the map, right and left. But yeah, the third for one player is too far away to the south if you're spawning top right. And this is again try to have your map set up so people can get 3 bases, and not have like one person's game experience way worse because he's taking this third base out in the middle of nowhere. If you know what I mean.
Maybe the backdoor should have a the gold base should have a backdoor, maybe. And yeah, glass hour maps tend to be like not not the best in late game. They just get like stuck. And
Yeah, I
you
mean,
end up
I
going like
played a
massive.
30-minute game on this map the other day where everything was mined out by like minute 25, and then we were just like sitting there with nobody mining for 5 minutes because no one actually wanted to attack.
Yeah. Sounds
Yeah.
sounds like a scenario that I might have seen a couple times. Yeah. Oof.
So speaking of split maps, though, we can get into too many bases behind chokes. That category, we can jump right into that.
Mm-hmm.
Which I guess we'll go with magma mines.
I mean, we already saw it a little bit with Catalesque, but we already saw it a little bit with Catalesque, especially like 5 bases behind 2 chokes. But like here,
yeah, this is the biggest split map you'll ever see in your life. It's 5 bases behind a choke. There's only one viable attack path. You can't actually attack into the low ground, like the ones that are tucked away in that tiny little area. Like you can't attack those bases. The gold base is doing nothing. The low ground expansions that are like towards the bottom of the map end up becoming like basically you're fighting from like those gas. You can see there's just a big path in the middle and nobody fights anywhere else, and it always splits map, and it's just awful. And it's funny because it's really close. It's actually would fit in the rush distance category, but there's just no reason to attack anybody on this map. And it's the same thing where if you have a backdoor base, you can't be super aggressive because the other player is just safely mining behind like one little ramp, and somebody, the other team is at goal base while it's going on.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think the ones low ground are at all hard to hold. I mean, this map, like, I remember playing one of our fellow judges on it, and my teammate was on Broodlord Infestor, and I was just full maxed on Swarmhost, and that was like what the game was like. And that happens a lot. I think that's the thing with this is like the better players know they can't get, like, when I say better, I mean like if you watched Grandmaster quality players playing this map, they know they can't attack, so they'll just go in the greediest thing ever. And you'll just, you'll see pros do it in 1v1 where they're like on hive tech at like an absurdly early time. And yeah, this is a disaster for swarm hosts. The distance by air is terrible. Like there's the features where there's just lava pits, so ground units are useless in that entire area, and air units can freely get around. It's just you can't have many things worse than this map. So I'll let you talk about anything if you want to, but it's
No,
basically every no
no.
you can imagine.
You got like all the items, I think. Um, I would like to say that it's just too small when it comes to like actual map making. But if I
I
remember,
mean, it's funny because
it isn't even like that small. Like yeah, it's 108. Like yeah, it's just too small for
as a
team
Zerg
games.
player, it's hilarious because just like I get I have I'm taking my second and third really fast in this map. I think like 28 third base. Um, and like you just have those 5 bases set up and defensible at like 3-4 minutes into the game, and that's not good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And we can jump to heavy artillery though, because heavy artillery is a very macro like influencing map that still works pretty well, but like definitely you look at it and you can tell it's designed to create like later game scenarios. Um, Especially within the use of a backdoor expansion and two naturals kind of behind one choke. This is a very hard map to attack into. However, at like there are certain bases that are fairly difficult to hold. So the map works as things get later, but definitely a more defensive setup with the back door, 5 bases behind one choke. You can make up for it if the rest of the map is good, but it's another thing where you're like making it hard on yourself. Um, for sure, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think this map plays pretty well, pretty well. I don't think like the mineral thing really adds to it that much. Well, yeah. Have you like if you're a Zerg, so if you're top Zerg, you want to spawn the natural more to the right of the two, and I'm 99% sure it's correct that you take the third base directly south of that, like out in the middle of the map is the best one to take. It's a bit of a pain to collect to do it like to connect those two bases with creep. But if you do, yeah, I think taking the gold base on this map is so bad early on. It's just like you have to walk all the way around, and everyone who's decent will scout it at some point early on. Um, but it can't. If you wanted to pull up the Zerg bases to show the expansion thing real quick,
The Zerg bases. Let me see.
yeah, the hatchery you had before.
Yeah. From which ones do you want me to go from the top?
So if we're in the top, we can do that one in the bottom. So yeah, you take that one, and then instead you take the one in the middle. This is the same thing where like you want to get not that one. Yep, there we go. It's the same thing where like creep. If you're a Zerg, you want to be creeping the map in a productive way, and it's kind of the same thing we saw before with Emerald City, where the other players are like tucked behind the other. There's a couple bases you tuck behind back there. But I think the map makes it hard enough after the first 5 bases that it does okay. Especially that 6 can be tough to nail down, and you'd be shot like the low ground third isn't that much easier to defend because it's like a really long distance from the one ramp out of the natural to get out to go to the low exactly. That's a long walk. And yeah, it's a good base to take out in the middle. It helps you defend more. Um, this map would be interesting. It would probably be too restrictive if it like a Zelnaga Tower on this map would be interesting as to how much control you would gain from holding it in those middle areas. But anyway, so yeah, if unless Kanto is something the too long didn't read is lots of bases behind one choke, but you can make it work with good stuff otherwise.
Yeah, no, I don't have much else to mention. There was a ladder map which had been inspired by this. I don't remember. But yeah, no. Right now, I don't have like any other
Yeah, because
particular
we're
thing.
overlapping on a bunch of stuff, which makes it quicker as we go. Because we can look at the next one, and this is like going to be the same combination of different things that doom it. Too many bases behind a choke, players spawning separately, etc., etc. We're just pulling up like two good versions. The fours maps are I would have to put thought into because but Cantu actually would probably be better at that part of things. Just from a map technical perspective.
For lexifanism or other thing?
Alexa, yeah, that one exactly. Because I would. It's hard. Like fours maps are hard to like tell how it'll play unless you like just from looking at it.
I mean, we already have the community edition of it.
Yeah, yeah.
If I
So yeah, like
remember,
I would like I think I don't know I like to me I don't know why these second bases should be this hard to take. This map just I would just make it so people can get third bases. Well, I only one way in is probably best.
I
I don't
remember
think
that
it's like
I remember that
yeah.
the
Go ahead.
change that we did to lexifanism was just cutting out bases.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yes, exactly. That's the things
we
we
cut the
did.
gold bases in the corners, and also if I remember, we cut like one or two bases in the middle of the map, something like
Yeah,
that.
because there were just a ton of bases before. There's way too many. But I would definitely. I think the way you make this map better is going just one opening in the natural, and then continue going. Yeah. No, I think like this is a 4v4. You could have even more dedicated rushes than 2v2 and 3v3. So having two entrances is kind of spooky. And the big opening, like I mean that's fine. I mean it's up to you to. I mean, Cantu knows what more about how base sizing should go, but I
So
would.
far,
Yeah.
yeah, so far as the base sizing here is like very well. It's very well achieved. Maybe you could give slightly more space for example, set players and etc. But besides that, honestly, spacing it's very well achieved. The only issue here previously was the amount of bases, but that has been fixed. You could even maybe like leave a small like gap here, like a single or a couple trees in here, and then just like have an opening around there. It will be redundant with this one, but like it's perfectly okay. So far as army movement, it allows for perfect spacing when it comes to like large detachments being sent through the edges of the map. It allows for double-sided expansion patterns, which is also like super good, especially in a map of this size.
Real
I'm
quick
like,
about the bit about the natural. Having a second set of rocks, particularly blocking like the more middly one, yeah, like that ramp you were just on.
yeah.
Um, you don't it like I think I could put like I'd like double the rocks maybe or whatever it is to just make it like you can kill later, but you don't have to deal with it super early on. Um, Teams are generally very bad about killing rocks once they should. Like if you once you have your third base, like there's no reason for those rocks to be alive. Um, why was the pass removed? It just they were just I don't know, dude. I don't know what you want to be doing in the bottom corner of the map. I'd have to look exactly what the changes were, but I think that's part of it.
Where
I
was the
feel like
path
there's
removed? The path
like
was
this map is the
removed
big high
because it
ground
was
stuff, right?
The
Go ahead,
path
sorry.
was initially removed because it was considered redundant. When it comes to army movement in that section, there is a limited amount that you gain from adding like extra little paths, especially around the edges.
This was the
That's
high
why it
ground
was
goal
removed.
bases, right?
Yeah, exactly. In the corners. Yep. He's asking me why, because that base also had a, like, I didn't just remove the base, I removed the entire high ground, right? That was the
Yeah, if
decision
you
for
don't
me.
have the base, there's no reason to have the high ground, as you were saying.
Yeah, I'm saying, and I just mentioned that you could technically add it back, but like that's a flip coin decision. Like it depends in the perspectives of the actual player, how he wants to the map to go. It's a very stylistic decision. It does, like, when you, but you need to realize that there is the rest of the map for flanking options as well. Right? Like there is like this section, there is this section. If you want to
Yeah,
attack this,
once
like,
you're getting to like the split map type points, like you have a huge area you gotta cover across the entire
exactly.
map,
Yeah.
diagonally.
Yeah.
Also,
Um,
I'm not gonna lie. If you're gonna put like random goal bases in the corner of your maps, Protoss players are gonna take it as their natural, and you have to, and that's gonna happen no matter what. But a lot of Protoss players would do that, so just keep that in mind.
yeah, they
It's
are
like,
degenerates. It's like you were saying.
well, yeah, I mean, as to killers point, I mean, we didn't really, we did it to do like the minimal revamping of the map, if you know what I mean. I think if you wanted to do like a more comprehensive re-edit of the map, then you'd probably do things differently, given what we get the tools and the capability we had. It was, it's not as thorough a job as it could be done as part of this contest or whatever, or you know what I mean.
Yeah, a killer on this situation for this particular map. When it comes to the amount of bases, more than cutting out the extreme late game scenarios, is more than anything stressing the resource scarcity of the map, or highlighting the resource scarcity.
Oh, by the
Uh,
way, sorry, when you're done, let me know.
but no, I think it's just that. I don't particularly disagree on the perspective, because that goes back to the core fundamentals that Dustin Browder had when concepting StarCraft 2, that you don't know the length of the game. You don't know if you will have a 5-minute game or a 45-minute game, right? And that gives the StarCraft 2 its own flavor, or real-time strategies in general. And I know that you are getting to that angle.
Regarding Enigma,
Mhm.
Enigma chooses the worst possible base setup of the choices you get. Is it 44 in my opinion? Well, the worst possible is everybody apart from each other, which is Eleni. That's like, yeah, that map's a bit of a hassle. I hope you've all been can rushing each other on it. But Enigma is, if you pull it up, Enigma, just you can look at the main base Kanto, and I think like the way this is set up with the 4 players and like a kind of box type deal and expanding in a direction is better than Enigma, where we're kind of giving the players in the back their own like everyone gets their thingies behind them. Yeah, like this is just like too much going on in the main kind of. It's a lot of bases, and I don't really particularly like the base setup in the main, but you can talk more about technical things with that.
Yeah, it just like strengthens the perspective of in TeamLiquid Map Contest. We're splitting different categories or subcategories of maps, such as Fortress or Rush. This definitely fits as a Fortress, guys. It's very turtly in that sense and promotes turtly gameplay. That's not particularly good. That's not particularly bad. It depends in the perspective of the map pool, that what directions and what flavors the map pool wants to give. Obviously, we always want a mixture of different maps. So yeah,
By the
no.
way, this base setup is like the exact same one you see on Old Estate as far as the main base goes. Um,
Take care, killer.
but yeah, it's this like you should be able to get a Reaper and Scout. I agree. It's like this map is just bad. I don't know why we have rocks protecting our back bases or why there needs to be random error spaces, just like so armies can't defend when they get attacked. So yeah, but I think this is like the worst base setup for 4s and 3s is everybody separate because that's just 3v1s and 4v1s. This is like not great, and then if you looked at the last map, that's probably the better way to handle your base setups in 3s and 4s.
Okay, which one do you want to see now?
We can pull up efflorescence because this map is about this is a terrain issue and the players. Wouldn't it be? I mean, then if you remove the two back, then everybody has to go into the middle immediately to get thirds, and then that becomes very contentious very fast.
Yeah.
Is my opinion. On the back base, on if you remove those bases, because I think you really want to let people Enigma, yeah. They don't. I think the back ones, if you remove them, then everybody gets pushed into the low ground way faster. Because
Enigma.
there's no thirds for everybody. Like if you have there's 6 pockets, yeah. So it's forcing some players to the immediate low ground, but I wouldn't remove more bases. Is what I would suggest. So this is an issue with efflorescence is like it works as a players spawn apart from each other, but there's a compounding issue where we're expanding away, and the terrain in the middle is so goofed up that it just discourages players from attacking a ton. I mentioned before we get into the terrain, I mentioned on the last map like this, the back bases are just a conundrum for Zerg. Like I personally think this setup where it's like bases behind your main bases is just not good in 2s in probably any format. Yeah, exactly. So you immediately go like away from each other, but then you look at the areas in the middle of the map and realize that you can't really attack one another, and you can kind of zoom in on that area, Kantu, if you want to talk about it. But what ends up happening is if you can hold like these are just high ground areas that are really easy to hold or whatever. And the game stalls out immediately once you get your third set up. So it's another one of those maps where it either ends quickly or you're just sitting on your side of the map. But you can go ahead, Kantu. Sorry.
From which section? What section of the map?
Just looking at like the space between the third bases in the middle of the map and the terrain in this. Yeah, I mean, if you, that's the thing though. Like this game, like yeah, this map is like either ends really early, but if you can't really attack into those third bases profitably at all, especially with early game armies that are very like you get a bunch of roaches in this map, and if you don't kill them, the roaches can't really do anything.
Yeah.
But no, it becomes a split map. Exactly. So I mean, same thing where it's like you can make a map work like this, and efflorescence works well for a player spawning across and expanding across. But like it's making it difficult with the terrain, and a different base setup just makes you're removing some of the inherent issues with the setup, regardless of how good or bad the map is on a specific level.
Yeah, generally when it comes to like this kind of hulls, if you allow me the expression, such as these ones, those behave as what I previously called stagnation points. This generally tends to happen in StarCraft 2 or any strategy game when you have like zones where you have like a specific entrance and a specific exit. It's other it's slightly more strange to find them in areas such as these ones. But the armies just like park here, or here, and here, and they just don't
Yeah,
attack.
there's
They
too
just
many. There's so many spots you can cover with just some number of tanks, and it's also like the defender's advantage is huge on this map. Like your back bases, like your natural way in the corner of the top right, and you want that unit to get to like someone's third. It's like a long hike, especially
Yeah.
if you're not a Zergling. Like you're not getting there anytime quickly. So defender's advantage is huge on this map. And yeah, I don't know what's going on in the middle. Like I don't know why those are rocks there. I don't. It doesn't like no one kills them really ever. I don't know. It's confusing.
Yeah, generally when it comes to like these type of bridges, from a map perspective, oh, it can be better. It will be more interesting to do this, to have a very narrow path through the center. Though obviously it screws up the pathing, but it gives like, I feel it gives like slightly more flavor.
And Miro, you're correct. This is anytime you have a split spawn, it's going to be like the game ends very early or just stagnates. But usually it can be like some maps like Overgrown Facility is like same dynamic where it's just like the game ends very quickly or you kind of, have you have all these bases and stuff. Um, Fields of Death we have not talked about. We did not plan on talking about Fields of Death, but actually it's a direct port of a 1v1 map from that same thing, Beginning of Legacy of the Void. I personally like Fields of Death, but like you can't. The problem is you have two back bases that are defendable from one choke, and so like it's like a Nexus first, CC first kind of map, if you know what I mean. It's a map that just encourages mech air, and in general, because we can open up Arctic Dream and then get to the last example, because there are set up. We'll cover the map. You don't. It's hard, right? You want to have a map that's open, that's like defensible enough against early stuff, but open enough that you can play. That the game can go on later, and it's a hard balance to strike, but obviously it's there in any StarCraft map. Why don't we pull up Arctic Dream real quick, and then we can look at Bastion. It's funny because that's the Maru versus S game where the only VOD of it is split in half, so you can't actually watch the best game in 2016. Kind of depressing. It's like split into two VODs. Oh no, this is no I oh no you wrote
Oh,
Arctic
yes,
Dream. I
yes,
meant Arctic.
Arctic
Yeah.
Gates.
Yeah. Arctic Gates. Actually, if it loads, but we want to look at Snowy Mesa real quick too. Yeah, so this is like one of these things where I just wanted to quickly say like there's so many fundamental things that are goofy in this map. And I think it's a Blizzard map almost certainly. But being overcomplicated with stuff is I think is as Cantu said and I've said, like being safe-ish is probably good compared to really wacky stuff like this where as a judge even it's like it's hard to diagnose how this map will play over the course of hundreds and thousands of games as people are laddering on it, because
Exactly.
like you can have so many weird experiences. And so just as a general, like this map's doing too much kind of thing. And Cantu, if you have any more feedback, but that's kind of where I'm at with these kind of designs.
Yeah, like this type of designs never worked in StarCraft 2, and I don't know any real-time strategy game where they have worked. By this I mean like close by air and long distance by ground. The contrast is like so strong that you end up just like having just pure air matches, and the thing with air is that the terrain doesn't matter, which at that point it's just the best implementations of close by air are like tends to be like maps in mirror designs rather than rotational, such as this one. Mirror might be like Ulrena or
Miro is actually, yeah, that's all these things that I'm describing with the players spawning separately. The ultimate result of all these things is just two 1v1s. And there are maps that just like efflorescence is just two 1v1s usually once you like get to a third. I'm trying to think of a better example because well, the best example is what's it called? That Horror Swarm map where the map is literally split in the middle. Like Dusty Gorge is like a kind of setup where it's like two 1v1s. But yeah, efflorescence and all those things, it's kind of like you want to allow the players to help each other out and not spread them so far apart that they can't risk doing so. Especially because the speed of the armies, depending on, a Terran Protoss army is way, way slower than like a double Zerg army. So, got to keep those things in mind. But we can also pull up Snowy Mesa because Snowy Mesa, yeah, Forgotten Sanctuary. I think it was. I'll look it up while Kantu's pulling up Snowy Mesa. But it was funny because even they goofed it for twos. So Snowy Mesa is just like you can't have this massive main base where you just build area units. This is a very strange map because it's another like you can yeah, it's just like the whole it's Reapers and jumping in all over the place and Blink Stalkers and air units and like the way you have to go to your low ground naturals, but like Protoss players I've seen really struggle with that, Protoss and Terrans, because early units like they don't have that in base to provide insulation from the damage early on. And like they have only one, so it's like that main base is actually like, yeah, exactly, Reapers have to do the whole jump, but Blink Stalkers and air units, if you're yeah there's you can't, if you're Protoss, you're doing one of those two, or else you're just losing, like you just have a worse composition than your opponent. So isn't matter, there's just so many things wrong with it, but it's the biggest issue is the forcing of like airplay, encouraging Blink Stalker stuff and those kind of things.
yeah. Uh, so far as the
Also,
level,
it's like not a very great use of gold bases. Like it's fine. Like, oh, the game stalled out a bit. Let's just kill some rocks and take a bunch of gold bases. Um, yeah, it's a bit. Is also like the way in the top right and bottom left, those bases are like tucked in. Is just it just, yeah, I don't know. It's not a good setup map.
yeah,
Yeah,
you'd
every
rather be
like this
like
is a map where everything's just is just bad on it. And it's good to highlight how many of them are bad. Like the double rocks to kill the ramp is like, middle of the map also on like the south, on depending where you are, can get really choky outside of those like gold bases. And well, once
yeah.
you get the split map scenarios, um you just it's yeah you just don't you're just really close to each other, but no one wants to move out because they have to go through that choke before they get to the more open area. So it's kind of like the boat arm, yeah, you see like that guy doesn't want to go there, and then the guy in the bottom doesn't want to go left. So even that further promotes stagnancy because you're moving into a bad space or through a bad space.
Oh yeah, you notice Miro. Yeah, it's actually missing like the cliff 3D meshes. I'm actually not sure why that happened.
I will
Sometimes
tell
it
you, I
happens.
rarely take that base, so I actually have never noticed it.
Yeah, at least it doesn't look like that
That's
horrible,
probably why it
but
looks
it's still like,
decent enough with the snow that you don't notice it in game. Because
yeah.
I play on the really high graphics, so. Uh,
Sometimes
Also, these
sometimes
little guys,
cliff,
man, little like these
sometimes
little
cliff
guys
just
blocking
break.
stuff.
Sometimes cliff just break in the SC2 and the StarCraft 2 editor, and there's like no fix until like you need to like restart the entire map from scratch. So I'm not sure what will happen here. Anyhow, so far as mentioning this,
Oh
I
yeah,
really
real
wanted
quick, just to
to.
mention, by
Uh
the
huh.
way, this is the same thing to keep in mind with like Terran add-ons. And if people want to wall with those, just that's all, same thing, same deal with 1v1 can happen in 2v2. You can just get a bunch of links, kill all your add-ons and stuff. Not really, just just keep it in mind.
Yeah, one thing to mention here is that the good thing is that the map actually has like open spaces.
The problem is you tend to not play in those open spaces.
Exactly.
It's just like if you look at the gold bases versus someone blinking in your natural all the way to the left, like it's just defending yourself. It is. It feels so huge because if people can access your main base and the like gold base at 6 o'clock ish or 3 o'clock ish, that kind of area, like it's a huge spread. It's too big. It's too big. Like if you had ways to get to low ground, then maybe, but it's just the huge walk around's a pain. So it just encourages you to do abusive stuff or lose. Really, that's it.
Yeah, in the case of, for example, in this situation, it's not that I'm saying that it is not empty. It is intended to be empty because it is just like you get contrast by having things and not having things, right? So in this situation, the fact that this area is so open, it gives contrast to this other zone where you have the choke points that Meisen was mentioning previously, right? In particular, it's not necessarily good, mostly because of the, I would say, poor implementation of the main bases in this map. There is like lots of space here that could have been used like in a far better way that just wasn't. Then we have like the corner bases in their entirety. They could have rearranged to be more efficient with the use of space available in the map. And not necessarily have them be boring in some way, but obviously not being like just like wallable in this section or like something that you can block here. It's understandable what the designer wanted to make, such as, for example, allowing this player to expand toward these bases via airdropping here and then like just expanding and walling off here and protecting from the high ground, right? It's understandable, but like it just didn't end up working that way.
Yeah, you have to get through too much stuff to do that, if you know what I mean.
Exactly. Like the barrier to doing that is like way too high. It's understandable that he wanted to do it. Like you can see the background, but it just doesn't end up working.
Yeah, exactly. It's an execution thing. I mean, this one, the premise is flawed from the start, but there will be a lot of, yeah.
Yeah.
And we can pull up real quick Seeds of Ire, and then I guess do answer questions if anyone has. Because this is like, as bad as Snowy Mess is, Seeds of Ire is the worst possible map you can make. And I told Kantu, you have to look at this map in the editor and not from the picture to see how bad it is. But yes, this is a map that's split by one choke, and you can see from the construction when you do that. Yeah, like those are very narrow corridors you have to walk through in the middle. So narrow that you can't even get ground units through it. It's just spectacular. You'll see it only in the map. Yeah, you don't see it on a picture the same way. It's just those areas are really restricted in the middle, really small.
Yeah.
And so yeah, like this just forces the map to go air because you can't walk through there. Yeah, exactly. It's so yeah. See, it's you. This is like just too small, and it's effectively just a brick wall in the middle of the map, as it currently stands.
Yeah, exactly. This is just like spacing, matters with spacing.
And yeah, but I mean, the thing to draw from this is just how armies will be, pretty big, how the size of armies and how 2v2, 3s, 4s changes that relative to 1v1. And, exactly, you could have you could have as many as 8 armies going through one thing, or it could be as few as 2 players, whatever you want to do it as. But yeah, over complicated ground stuff just is going to lead to air maps. So that's another thing to keep in mind. If you like the heavy artillery type maps, Where you have a safe setup, the Terran and Protoss are gonna want to mech air. And I would say if there's two general like compositions that are very, very 2v2, it's like lots of Zerglings off like 3 bases, but maybe like not too many workers. And these mech air compositions are like your map has to take those two big different compositions into account to play these things, is how I would generally say. Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
this map just yeah, but don't need to go into it too much. But I'm amazed that this got put on ladder. Even I know it's bad for Blizzard. Even like this is
No,
yeah.
I don't remember who. If I remember, this one was not from Blaze, if I remember correctly. So I'm not sure.
I think up there was Forgotten Sanctuary. Where is it?
Anyhow,
Oh,
there were
Bastion. Yeah.
some. There was a very. I don't remember the exact name, but there was a map from Superhuman that was a
My
spaceship
favorite map maker.
that that was like very similar to this, to this initial concept. Yeah, Noah's Ark. Yeah, Superhuman there posted the name. That map is gorgeous, and it
Oh,
just set
Superhumans, yeah.
he set the
Mhm.
record for like how those type of maps might be implemented, and this is obviously like an allure in order to highlight like the map that he made several years ago.
Yeah,
Sadly, when it came to the implementation, it didn't work because of what you mentioned, the amount of space that is necessary to make sure that team maps and that the armies and army flow can work in team maps is like different than in 1 versus 1. And here you end up like just highlighting and fomenting airplay to such a degree that it 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 doesn't end up giving the the flavor that, for example, Noah's Ark initially inspired. Obviously, like this zone, if you could make it work, like actually, it would be like beautiful. I love the level of contrast that this type of zones that it gives me very Hitchhiker vibes. The Hitchhiker, the map from Brood War, with a very tight central corridor. But for StarCraft 2, we sadly can't really make it work to such a degree. There are some places where you can use it, but like not over usage, such as ended up being in this situation. Here, as a way to fix it, for example, a very quick way might be obviously like starting removing this, maybe removing that. This one can stay. This ramp needs to be considerably larger. See, I need to remove more doodads. This area as well needs to be larger. This lake needs to go. This area, this choke point needs to be larger, and there needs to be like an open area here, but there needs to be like some open area here.
Yeah, the trenches are the hardest part once you're walking through those. It's just so like yeah, it's
Yeah.
just so brutal.
For example, this choke point needs to be contrasted with an open area here and an open area here. The problem is that this open area is not open enough because we have the ramp in here. This ramp needs to go. Maybe we can increase the size of the ramp itself, but then you are increasing the distance in this choke
I mean,
point, and
it's
then
like
you are
also just
having
funny
less
that
contrast.
just to say like that it's an up ramp is like just don't leave your side of the map. It's like it's a feature that discourages
Exactly.
you from moving out anyway.
Exactly. Precisely. Yep. So obviously, like the alternative to that might be to make it into the low ground, but then you are discouraging from attacking, right? You are still like achieving the same effect. Um, yeah, that's what I mentioned. Like if you were to fix it, this would be like some initial way to go around it, but I'm not sure. I am not sure. And at this point, then when you're doing this, you end up taking away any value that this might have, right? that
Yeah, now they're not part of the. Yeah, it's funny because now it's like it's two different concepts at this point.
Exactly. You need to have a barrier here in order to give value to this to the small tight passages at the sides. Otherwise, it just doesn't work. Alternatively, you could add, for example, a huge mineral wall in here and make
I mean,
the
the other thing
center of the
is,
map an absolute pain to path through
yeah,
throughout the
that's what I'm
entire
saying. Even now, it's horrible to path through. Even like as it is, like it's just so hard to get units to go where you want because they go in all directions.
Yeah, exactly.
But why don't we bring up reclamation though? Before any questions, because I think reclamation is kind of we had talked about it before the call. We can kind of repeat that because I think it's probably the best map in the pool. Probably is. So yeah, obviously it's a Abyssal Reef port over to 2v2. Some things to mention about this map. It's the same idea of the two naturals. Especially the little rocks that we also saw in Emerald City. It's the same exact setup as Emerald City. Rocks on the ramp going to the low ground, and the rocks going towards the third base. That's a good setup, like that kind of deal. It's good on Reclamation. It's good on Emerald City. It has the low ground third also that Emerald City has, which I too, because Emerald City is kind of a less obvious Abyssal Reef port. But one thing to note about this map is the creep spread is a little goofy because you want the low ground to be your third and fourth. Yeah. The way this map works is like you're able to get up to 3 bases. Well, I mean but do the other low ground one. Because if you just like the mill, yeah. So that the Zerg wants to take these 2 bases ideally, because then you can creep more of the map, and it's the same kind of deal where you're often going to get the other players kind of spawning behind them, but the access this map allows behind compared to Emerald City is much better. And a lot of that just has to do with base setup and the number of bases. And I think you can talk about some of the technical things, but you can go ahead.
No, more of what you mentioned. Obviously, like it carries, as we have been stressing, to avoid doing split main bases. This being the best map, it still like showcases that what we're saying is not particularly a law,
Yeah,
but
you can
it
always if you
gets
have a good
pretty
natural
close.
area.
Yeah.
If you have a good natural area, you can make up for a bunch of it. And while the main is exposed, one of the mains is exposed by air. It doesn't. It's one of those things where like your third and fourth, like as the game goes on, your armies are ahead. Like you got to go through stuff to get to your mains. So the way it's like tucked behind the bases helps. And yeah, I think it's just good because it's the same thing with the amount of bases. Like when do you want the game to start getting contested? Yeah, so like everyone gets 3, but I guess one person gets a fourth. 1, 2. Yeah. And like I feel like the 4.5 base is always a good base to have as a point of contention in a 2v2 game, where people are like your fourth and fifth should be the bases that you struggle to take, but you want to give people reasonable enough first 3 bases so they can play an actual macro game if they want to. And that's worth noting. I will say one thing: the rocks that is on the ramp going down to the third. For some reason, team players don't kill rocks ever. I don't know if there's a way you can like point to these and be like, "Hey, eventually you should just kill these because they might like have siege tanks or something." And then you have a half as big choke to go down, so you just get killed in the choke. This is actually a problem on Abyssal Reef. If anyone remembers the 1v1 map, it had rocks going down, and there was a siege. It was like an all-in siege tank build you only used on that map, and you siege the natural. So sorry for the aside. But yeah, I think
I remember that when that particular timing push appeared, it was like a worry.
Oh yeah. At first, no one could stop it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, the thing I found with this is the same way like it gets pretty safe as you go on, but yeah, I think fourth, fifth base is good stuff. I'm looking at this message by the music real quick. Yeah, I mean that's that's the thing. You can get away with more stuff, but it's also like since it's not the standard of 1v1 in a certain way, which you're kind of getting at. I think you can make up for like a not great main base by having like a good natural, and like this map's a good example of that, right? Or like
Yeah.
just having just you can make up for issues along the way because every map we talked through today are have huge issues with them, but a lot of them I think are just some of the best 2v2 maps. People can say what they want about like Emerald City or Roskellion or these maps we've had on for many years, and they've gotten solved to this point, but they're so stable that you can have games on, and there's not like a single breaking feature that makes it too hard. Like a great example is our guy Superman. The Spirit of 76 map he makes, that's like one of the most beautiful looking maps, but it's a 3v3 map where all three players spawn separately, and you're just done. Your map is I hate to say it to map makers, but it's like if we see that, like that's game. It's over. Someone's getting 3v1 and no one's gonna enjoy that map. But yeah, that's so but I guess what I'm saying is there's all these maps have errors because 2v2 is more exploitable, but you just want stability, and you can get creative within that. But if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, as I previously mentioned at the initial part of the stream, uh, team games have an extra layer of defender's advantage, but it comes with the double edge that if the players are split apart, then that defender's advantage works against the players, basically, because you have two armies against one. It's
And
something that doesn't happen in one versus ones.
And like I meant to mention, also I said like the armies are just so different speeds, and the areas are bigger because it's accounting for two players. And you can run a bunch of Zerglings from one base to the other, but you can't walk like two Adepts or four Marines. So like by that's like the kind of stuff that certain races get extra punished by having being further away because they can't move out or help.
Yeah, exactly. The contrast between unit speed and lack of unit speed becomes considerably heightened. Yeah, absolutely. 100%. 1,000, 1,000,000%.
And as how these things apply to threes and fours, I think it's similar. I think it's good to let people get their three bases. Again, fourth and fifth should be bigger points of contention. I think it's good to have you spawn as much as possible with your teammates in those team games and just try to keep moving in a reasonable direction. Um, have to keep track of like if you're spawning, if everybody's expanding in one direction because of how big four player maps are, do you then end up with a main base all the way on the other side of the map that people are like swarm hosting or attacking from air? So that's like a specific thing with threes and fours. The bigger the map gets, how big of an area can you feasibly defend? If the space is so huge, and that's less of an issue in twos, but more in threes and fours for sure. And I think threes and fours, that's just to talk about them, same deal where you want to allow people to get like if their natural is difficult in any way to take, it's like it's again threes and fours, you can't really do that too much. This is another map where you want to spread the creep like in the middle of the map and let the other person spawn behind you. But yeah, like this main base does not. You would expect it would have a really tough time to air, but the fact that there's the base directly south, makes it so it's kind of it doesn't get exploited all that much. As so threes and fours like so we can you pull up Eleni Conclave real fast? It starts it's like AEL I think, or I think it's an AE that's at the start because that's a good example of chaotic nature of threes and fours. And
Oh, I thought I had it, but I don't. Let me see.
Yeah, I probably spelled it wrong. I mean, Mira, I agree. Like, I think Old Estate was actually is actually a very good 4v4 map. People can disagree with me. That's fine. But I think that it spreads you out in a reasonable way, and then it just get and you get like I've had like 40-minute games on Old Estate that are just like in the end it's like everybody's just mining so I think the map doesn't have to be like super pushed to have chaotic stuff. Like that stuff is just gonna happen naturally. But as you said, obviously within reason, yeah. You don't need to like promote the crazy stuff because players will do it anyway. And yeah, this map is just an issue because it has the 4 players spawning separately with the cannon rush combo. There we go.
I'm just so happy that we managed to get this map changed.
Yeah, I will say it was a bit trollish of us to put on ladder, but you can choose not to play on it, so that's a positive. But yeah, so if we're looking at the bottom 4 bases, so the top right is base number, or top left is base number 1, bottom left base number 2, 3, 4, as we circle around. One of these bases, and the guy number 1 is kind of just goofed here. Um, you can cannon. So if you look at where the mineral line is, um, it's very you can cannon from there, and your teammate, you just put an overlord over the mineral line and put some what's it called there? Sorry.
No, no, I'm just like occluding everything because I'm opening
Oh yeah.
the previous version because
Oh
I
yeah,
opened
yeah.
the
Oh
community
yeah.
edition
Yeah,
version, the one that we fixed.
that we fixed the spot.
Yeah,
But this
exactly.
is like the thing where like this is like a yeah. So 4 players spawning separately, not good. That cannon rush spot though, both sides have it where the your team has rocks. So yeah, they can't really defend. And this is just like a peculiar thing that they set up. I'm sure Blizzard did not care when they set up this map. But think about the way the units have to path and like this base, you can't actually help your teammate on. Nobody can. You know. So that's definitely something to take into account because when yeah, I mean like this stuff is just it's just you're not mining. And the funny part is you see that so usually this person either dies or lifts off, and then you can also can rush the right base in this base also
Yeah.
because it's like still a long walk. So you see the middle like mineral line that's like closer to the middle lane of the map. Like even that stuff you can even can rush people over there. It's like everything is hard to get to, and that's a big thing to take into account with the 4s and 3 maps that get really huge. Is can you actually like get places reasonably? Um,
Yeah, uh,
but yeah, you should have seen competitive 4v4 on this map, and like just knowing you're gonna get cannon rushed every time, and playing in like
I
Marshall
wanted to
one.
say like yeah, and you need to like be like cannon rushing beforehand or something like that, building like spine crawlers.
It's so rough. I mean, even if you're Terran and they like put one cannon down and make you lift off, you're just like, oh, that
Oh my
sucks.
god.
But we can go through some questions. I think this is obviously an extreme example, but we can probably get to questions because I have nothing else really on this one, and I think we've talked about most of the maps, so we got through all the
Perfect.
ones we had selected early.
Ta-da. I did a fix.
Yeah, yeah. So we tried to fix it. I mean, just but yeah, cannoning is something to keep in mind on team maps a lot. You can in 1v1 if someone cannons and it doesn't work, they're kind of like all in-ish. Like they're in a really bad spot. In 2v2, you have to count for those extra units that could be coming. You could have a cannon rush and the Zergs going 13 gas, 12 pool, and throwing a bunch of speedlings at you. Like so cannon rushing is definitely something to keep into account. And when you have a 4-player game, The likelihood that somebody's canning rushing in there becomes higher as you start to go through more and more players. And yeah, we can old estate. Yeah, we can pull up that. I remembered you mentioned Bastion of the Conclave. Just got lost in between things.
What? What? What is not opening?
It's East State East like a building.
No. No. Okay. Yes, 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 yes,
Yeah,
yes, yes,
yeah.
yes, 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 yes. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm
You see
super
what I mean?
sleepy. I'm sorry. I'm
No, no,
sorry.
it's
I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. Okay.
so this was I was talking about the setups where you have like your extra bases out on the sides of your main. Wait for it to load.
It's taking a particularly long time. I was getting worried there.
So yeah, so this is the same kind of thing where you like the players second and third bases like around a central main. That's another base setup. Like this map is I think the thing it does well is that as you go into the late game, you can only like the main base is pretty hard to attack unless you're going by air or you like blink up and stuff. Yeah, it does the same thing Enigma does, but I think it does it better. Because those because like it doesn't pull you in as many directions. Um, Obviously you have those bases to protect, but I feel like this when you're on this map and playing it, those bases in the like bottom right corner or top left corner, they are so far away. These are very big platforms in game.
They are huge. They are huge.
And
Yeah.
but I definitely so I think this is a map that does a better job of Enigma of expanding the players together. The fighting spirit gold bases in the middle actually work pretty well in this map. Because there's already there's some great tank spots on that high ground though, and things like that in the middle. But yeah, I think that it's also interesting. You can get up to that Zelnaga tower with a Reaper, 99% sure.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting map, but I think better. It's better at doing this particular thing than Enigma, is my opinion. But this is like again, this is one of the three. Yeah, yeah. I think that does it better, and less bases are exposed by air. It's really just like that one guy in the top left corner. Like he's the one that has to.
That gets a
Yeah.
little bit screwed by airplay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. Like you're gonna have games where just one person gets beat up, and it's just because that's where they spawn, and the person won void rays. Um, but Bastion the Conclave, I actually probably because I haven't seen that one in a bit. If we can pull that one up because that was mentioned. Like personally, I think 4v4 is half the time it's hard to predict what maps will play how. Just because there's so many race combos and all that stuff. But we're gonna do. Oh yeah, this thing. This map. Yeah. I remember this from like 2018-ish, 19-ish. First came out. So this is like a super rushy map when it gets played. What is that brightness? Is too much. Um so I don't particular I think it's not particularly like it doesn't come up all the time. But the way this third base for the one player is separate from all the others, like that's a general no I would go with. And the island bases, yeah, don't waste the space on your map with island bases. But threes and fours especially are you don't want this like the rocks are there. The rocks might as well like the rocks might as well not be there, and it's just like a wall because it's not going to come into effect early on. Um, So if you want it to be a safe base, just have a wall there. If you have it open though, it's a really Zerg players get really goofed on this. There's not enough bases, and that's why like get rid of the island bases and get actual land. There's so much space that you can add to this map if you want to have more bases or different setup. But yeah, a lot of dead airspace here.
Yeah.
It's kind of like 3/4 of the map, if you know what I mean. You just like cut off a quarter of it by
Exactly.
having
If you want
islands.
to implement something like this, you need to do it very close to the actual gameplay zone, and this is a luxury that you just can't be taking. It's way too much area that is being not used in something. It you need to be careful of that. Like that's it.
And yeah, mentioning the thirds, as Miro said, it's like Zergs cannot play a game of StarCraft on 2 bases. And you need to, as a map maker, consider what happens if you have 4 Zergs that randomly spawn in. That's why I think thirds should be on the safer side because yeah, you just have the general issue of you could end up needing to take a lot of those bases and pretty quickly depending on your comp, because yeah, two hatches worth of larva is not enough to do anything.
Yeah. So far as the island bases, it's not necessary for them to be connected actually, but the amount of space that is being wasted here is just too much. Like
And
it's
it
not
also
necessary to
includes
connect
on
them
the
with
other
rocks.
side. It's on the other side too, because like the spaces are like a general theme on the entire map.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. We had some questions in the document. Some initial
By the way, the
questions.
middle map space on that just it's so clustered.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah, I that's why I think island bases are not like a good. Maybe you want one there's one on Likey or whatever that map is. I forgot the one TT. Yeah, that Superman made. There's an example of that. But yeah, island base is tough because yeah, Zergs can't get to it. Yeah, it kind of sounds funny because like I play Zerg to just talk about these Zerg specific issues, but yeah, teams definitely. Um, Sorry, I lost my train of thought answering Superman's question. What was I saying?
You were answering to Maido.
Yeah, I answered Superman's question. Oh yeah, no, it's the but yeah, this bait. Yeah, I don't know what people try to do in the middles with these in team comps, but yeah, it's another movement issue map. It's you know. So yeah, that's we can move on. You were saying there were some questions.
Yeah. We already answered several of them in the document.
Okay.
How well liked are in-base naturals? Obviously, we
So
already
yeah.
mentioned this in.
So yeah, you'll need kind of like in-base naturals and fourths for sure, and fours and threes, just because you'll need need enough bases. So you'll include that stuff in those pretty regularly, I think. But would I suggest in-base I say an in-base natural immediately makes the map more defensive, and that's something that needs to be considered because yeah, you can't really attack into the 3 base setup where it's main and the natural. You can't really attack into that, so keep that in mind. And and then this issue of each base in teams, because you have so much space from one corner to the other. Like on this map, the guy, if you're spawning bottom 6 o'clock ish, the person who spawns furthest to the left is kind of in like a really weird position, but so is the person furthest to the right. Um, you know, Everybody needs a main base, so I think watch out for just situations where air becomes an issue or cannon rushing or one thing or another that that disrupt the early game for one player. And also like overgrown facility is the worst example of what we saw, where one player is like 3 bases, the other player is 5 bases. Um, so that's what I would say. Overgrown facility is a really bad example of players having a different setup with that. Yeah, the expansion is low for 4 players. was a note in here. I think, yeah, 3 so people can macro, and then getting a 4th and 5th should be the larger issue. Yeah, I see. Yeah. Yeah, it's like the thing you see. Yeah, the person who spawns closer to the right and left sides of the map just gets extra bases. So keep that in mind about, like, the one player experience is very different than the other player experience on this map. And in general, looking out for like maps that promote 1v1 scenarios. And yeah, so are there any
Yeah.
features besides the obvious that we would consider mandatory or instantly disqualifying? Terrain that just doesn't work. I would say, like, we looked at Seeds of Ire, which is the extreme example of it, but, like, terrain, the terrain that makes movement to, like, air promoting is bad. Spawning players too far apart from each other is bad. Making it hard to get third bases or putting too many bases behind a choke, kind
Single
of like
trope,
these
yeah.
things. Those are kind of just general, but I mean, they all exist in 1v1 too. It's just things you're taking into account. So yeah, the lowering of bases. I think it comes down the number of bases. If you're only putting less bases on the map to, like, speed up the game, I feel like that's the wrong way to go about what you're actually trying to do. And there's probably a way where you can lower because Kanto, I'm referencing this because we had very little time and ability to make the changes to the maps when we were changing bases around. I think that's a goal, though, that when you're actually making the map, you can promote in much more clever and efficient ways than we'll just take off some bases or add some bases.
Yeah.
Which is what we were doing, kind of.
Yeah. Rearranging the maps or restructuring the thing is that when we are talking about the total amount of bases, you sometimes need to end up rearranging several, like, large parts of the maps, and doing that without direct assistance from the level designer, I feel it's just, like, simply disrespectful to a certain degree, because it can easily break, like, their vision of the map and etc. It's their map after all.
Which is
I
why
think
we're
that
very happy for the longer submission phase and all that stuff we'll have this time around.
exactly, precisely. Um, yeah, there is not much else that I can mention here because hopefully going forward we will be taking this time and we will be able
Yeah,
to do
so
this.
there is a 3v3 map that people mentioned earlier, which I just wanted to make sure I get the spelling right. Because it's a is this the right one? Yeah. So Black Site is a 3v3 map. It's a common type of 3v3 map that, like, Blizzard made and kind of, like, is in the ladder in there's a couple different maps like it. It's just one. If you can pull it up, can too.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a LE and a 2E version. But it speaks to spawnings, points, and 3s and 4s a little bit. That's the thing. Black Site is reliably, like, gets the same game tape kind of gameplay every game, which is kind of interesting. How I think there are good things about Black Site, and there's some really bad things about it. But I think you get a very low number of non-games on Black Site, which is something I look out for in, like, 2s, 3s, and 4s. Is like, how many is there a feature that's just gonna, like, make it a non-game, so to speak, like the cannon rush on Eleni. And so Black Site's an issue of you have people going. I mean, I've gone 2 Nexus before Gate on this map in 3v3 at Masters level. So, like, you can kind of, but I do think the number of bases, though, this idea of having everybody gets 3, and then you have to go out into the middle to fight for your 4th bases is I think a good, like, just I guess concept behind 3v3 map making is, like, you're kind of forcing the players to get off that 3 base economy, and they have to fight over it. So this is an issue because like there's so much air access and people can spawn way in the back and they're untouchable, and it's like a big huge area for swarm hosts, and so there's all kinds of problems with the map. But I will say like the idea of having to fight for a 4th and 5th base is a good thing to fight for, I think, on certain size 3s and 4 maps. But yeah, this map has its own issues with just if you spawn all the way in like the back, those 3 bases are just yours.
Yeah.
Yeah, the air blockers. Air blockers don't really make a lot of sense for sure.
I mean, these days, especially not with the teleporting battle cruisers and all that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. Eventually, all you can fight over is the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's so yeah. So yeah, but you basically get 3 bases where you're just sitting there making carriers for a while if you want to. Because yeah, it's hard to get into 3rd base. But I like how it makes you fight over something, and I think maps, it's pretty campy and pretty mech air map. But I do enjoy maps that force people to eventually do stuff, and this map does eventually force you to do stuff, but although it might take like 15 minutes. And that's just something to keep in mind for designing the 4v4 maps, is there's so many different experiences, especially at lower MMR. Yeah, exactly. You don't get diversity every game, but like every game's reasonably stable. So it's like it brings up a larger question in like map making design of how much should the map affect the gameplay. Yeah, no, I mean, it's not like a great execution of it because you have so many minerals and just one choke to sit behind. But there are like a couple of 3v3 maps that are like this. There's another one that's not as good where there's some rocks blocking some paths that turn into swarm host spots. But what I meant to say, I regained my train of thought there. A lot of different game experiences from like silver, diamond, masters, like grandmaster players. And I know it's like so same thing that you would do with ones where it's like everybody at silver on like buried caverns or black site is just macroing and like not attacking. That's their game experience. They're just making carriers. And so it's it's interesting to take because you have more elements to take into account as far as how these maps scales with better players and different races and just things to keep in mind. I guess it's nothing too no real epiphanies coming from me over here. And you can feel free to add anything you would like. I think you muted yourself.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah, I like black side actually a little bit, but it's precisely because of the contrast that you mentioned. Having such variation in a game is part of like playing. It's just part of it.
Yeah, of course. So that's like why, but like black site is especially a good example for like 3s and 4s because it's like it's gonna it forces you into a type of gameplay, which I don't love, but it's definitely, I don't know. I feel like
It's what you are
sometimes
signing up for.
yeah,
It's what
yeah,
you are
you
signing up for
want
when
to
you're
yeah, if
playing it.
you're just gonna play a macro game on this map, and that's kind of how it's gonna go. I
Sometimes you
personally, if it was like more, should this map promote macro play or should this map promote rushing? When it gets to 3s and 4s, I would lean more to the macro play. And 2s also, I mean, you just don't want games that are just like overgrown facility where it's Ling, Oracle, or whatever it is every game.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, final wrap or any maps that we haven't seen. For example, we haven't seen Dusty Gorge and Traitor's Exile.
Yeah. We can pull up Trader's Exile real fast. It's another map that's like a combination of many bad factors just becoming an unplayable thing. And so it's this map has issues with Reapers. It has issues with too many bases behind chokes. It has issues with you see players spawn separately, but all the bases are like on a high ground, but there's only one choke, but Reapers can also get up it. So this is like a big Reaper abuse map. And you can see, because, yeah, players spawn separately, too many bases behind a choke. The middle of the map is really small, actually. I don't know why it's done so, but yeah, this is another map where, like, you don't really want to move out. And yeah, terrible rants, exactly. It's like you are in no way, incentivized to move out on a map like this. And it's going to be one of these things where either you die to the early pressure or it just stalls out because no one wants to go to the
No
low
one
ground.
wants to. Yeah, no one wants to path through that.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, that's the balance, right? Having these maps that are that's what we want to avoid, or just the non-games where, like, a link flood just kills you, and or some type of, cannon rushing is exceptionally easy on a map, trying to avoid team scenarios that are more likely to come up just because there's more players in race combos.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, we don't need to look at Dusty Gorge or anything. They're all just variations on, like, the same kind of errors. And a map can obviously survive them, but
let me
yeah.
still show them. Let me still show them.
Yeah, Dusty Gorge is worth mentioning because it's like another 1v1 map. I mean, it's a map that's bad at every stage in the game somehow. Yeah, I mean, it's just you're the bait. Yeah, it's just you can't really help anybody, and you end up just fighting. It's a dumb map. I wish there was something like, oh, but you can, like, but the game really opens up when you do this or that. It's like, no, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't. No, dude.
Yeah, you can't help out your teammate in, like, the early game. You don't really have, like, a defensible point in the mid game, and then you're, like, really not incentivized to attack in the late game. So as Miro said, like, everything is just bad. Yeah, it does have the connection. I actually think that connection is worse, in my opinion. I think it creates, like, some really chaotic settings, where people are going, and Reapers can go, like, from main to main also by using that back area. So I'm not personally thrilled about that back area and how it plays out.
By the way,
yeah.
For all the map makers in here, Myzen was blaming us for this one, for Dusty Gorge, but I just checked that it was done by Blizzard. So I actually didn't remember exactly, because I remember seeing in the TLMC submissions a map that was, like, similar to this one, but no, it never made it past filtering and that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
no, this one comes straight from Blizzard.
Yeah, you can tell because the middle gold bases are, like, directionless. Like, they're obviously meant to do something, but they don't actually do it.
Yeah, we call them, like, winners bases, or, like, at least we used to, like, back in Heart of the Swarm. Nowadays, they work better because the lesser amount of resources, actually.
Yeah, I guess it's a way. If you can take it, you're already ahead, kind of
Yeah,
deal.
exactly, and you get, like, even more ahead.
Yeah.
Um,
But it's just interesting. Like, this one doesn't really influence army movement or anything all that much. It doesn't actually. It's not like a point you
if you
actually
allow
want.
me, if you allow me
Yeah.
the expression, army movement is already fucked on this map. So
Yes.
to blame, I will need to blame myself, but yeah, army movement is like already screwed because part of the design of the map is, like, to constrain army movement. So
Yeah,
yeah, there is,
usually
like,
just a
not much
bad.
here.
Yeah. All that's going to encourage in team games is Terran Protoss going mech air in general. Whenever, if you're going to make things that are restricting the map, that's what you're getting into.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many of you guys play 2s, 3, 4s, but mech air is so many times worse than just mech or air, Protoss air, when I say air, on its own. Like, those compositions cover every base. They're just a bunch, tanks, Thors, carriers, Tempests. Like, they're largely unbeatable armies. And they're easier to make off 3 bases than, like, the Zerg huge armies are. So on a map like this, where really, like, the top player, let's top left or bottom right, they don't have a lot of expansions, and a Zerg player isn't going to be able to, like, take 4 or 5 bases and just be churning out units and 80 workers. But a Protoss or Terran player can kind of sit there just producing stuff off 3 bases and defending. So it's something to keep in mind.
Yeah, precisely. Also, that reminds me, obviously, that the amount of churning units, but the Zerg army is still like very gas efficient when it comes to it, because they have like tends to have the free units that come with their units consuming gas. Brute lords, obviously the
You know,
uh,
it's actually interesting the way Zerg functions with some of the expansion stuff, but just yeah, it's just worth keeping in mind. Like you could have every team, just keeping in mind when setting up bases and stuff that everybody could be a Zerg, and then you're gonna need to like account for the possibility of it. And like
yeah.
the same thing we noticed on Catalyst, where like one player can wall for both players. You know, it's like things like that are going to lead to sedentary, games where people are just sitting around doing nothing.
Okay, then I think that will be basically it for the stream. We went a little bit long, some like 40 minutes extra than I was initially scheduled.
I think we
But
got everything.
yeah, we managed to get everything, dude.
And yeah, I guess if any, Cantu and I will, so you map makers know, be like, in communication about this stuff. If there's, I don't know what he does with you guys over the map makers Discord, but I guess, feel free to do that.
Yeah, I know. We're always like in discussions about it. Uh, yeah, no, I think that will be basically it. I will be sending. I will be obviously like dropping this stream will be uploaded likely to my YouTube channel. And from then we will be sharing documentation. Obviously, there is the tentative perspective that we might do a secondary stream. I don't know for myself because it will be very busy, but I might do it in myself, especially to receive early submissions and provide prejudging feedback. I
I'd
literally like
probably, I'd probably be able, unless it's like literally on the days when I'm flying to Korea, I'll probably be able to help
in
out.
my case, for example, at the end of the month, of this month of June, I am unable to like have calls or anything, but we still have like 1 week in early.
Yeah, I think July 7th is the end of the submission phase.
Exactly. So
So
we
that
have
yeah,
like
I'll be
some
available.
days. We have some days where we still can do it, and we can allow for a turnaround of maps, to leave time for the map makers to actually like implement ideas. But we will see. Please be
And thank
conscious.
you.
Please be conscious that we're people as well. We have like duties and etc. So
And
we
I
might
do
not have.
appreciate the map makers who watch the stream though and have
Yeah.
interest in making team maps. Just a little bit ago, we thought we were just stuck with the same maps for all time. So 3v3 and 4v4 that are good ones. The funny thing is there's probably people who play a lot more threes and fours than I do who could give you more complex answers. And also I personally prefer kind of macro-ish maps, but fours I could pass along a list to Cantu or something and have him convey to you guys because we don't fours maps are tough. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
but I can get him.
Generally.
But that's like a good thing. For example, if someone did want to like hear do the second, be a part of second stream, like to get an idea of how, because fours and thirds, every time you add players, it just gets harder and harder. And I'll admit that like when you're getting a threes and fours map, sometimes like you just want something that's playable and stable. Um, at least have some of those maps, if you know what I mean, in the pool. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, otherwise I think we're good. My other interview from today got canceled, so it's okay that I screwed up my
Oh
throat.
no, we
Yeah,
went too
I'll have to
long.
do it tomorrow. So
Okay, then we will be wrapping it up around here. Thank you everybody who attended. We had like lots of guys just like circling around, even some old dudes showing up, such as Ferisi.
we
Yeah,
better
no,
see
guys.
76 again. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly. No, we're like super happy to be able to host this. And obviously, we are doing this previous to the actual announcement of the TeamLiquid Map Contest, but it is what it is. We didn't want to keep delaying it. Because obviously, like, Mizen has like some other things to do, me as well. So after this, like, we will have the time for the submissions, and obviously looking forward to all of them. I likely will also be assisting Mizen in the judging and then doing the quality assurance. So hopefully, guys, the maps will like end up like super clean by the end of the whole process.
Yeah, we have a lot more time than previous contests, which have really been very truncated.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
One last question.
Good way to end it. One last question.
Shoot away, Myro.
Oh. Yeah, like I was saying 2 years ago, I was like, maps. I actually, this is a Cantu answer because I have no opinion on this.
I mean, you guys can split the prices however you want. It's actually kind of difficult to make maps by two people. Generally, when you do it, one does the level design and the other does the art, because you can then have like a singular vision in how you want to
you're not
implement
two
everything.
competing visions.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, go for it. Like, it will be super fun to see like a finalist that is like a map done by two people. That's not something that has happened before in the TeamLiquid Map Contest.
Offer his services for making maps.
Yeah, something like that. I have done it. I have actually done like maps assisted with different guys. I'm not gonna say that it ends up badly, but it didn't end up like super good. It depends in how well do you guys want to implement it. But other than that, also the great benefit of 4 versus 4 and 3 versus 3 is that the maps are so large that you guys might actually be able to do it. Like, you can divide, like, okay, we divide the map, I do this section, you do that section, and then between both we try to coordinate how to merge the area, and then we flip the map and we do like mirror symmetry or rotational symmetry. I think it could work. I think it will be fun. But yeah, other than that, I think that we are wrapping the stream. Please do it. Please do it. I want to see how it turns out. But we will be wrapping the stream. Have a great evening, guys. And for everybody in YouTube, thank you for seeing this like long video about a very quite specific topic, such as StarCraft 2 map making and level design. But yeah, no, a pleasure, Mizen, to have you for like 2 and something hours. I'm previous to all of this, coordinating everything. And obviously later on we will be like doing the judging and everything. So it will be some good times. Anyhow, have a great time, guys. Take care out there.
GG's.